Okay, our layout is done. All of our lines are snapped on the floor and all of our lines are transferred up above either to the floor joists or to our cats. Okay, so we can now begin some actual framing. Right, this is where the framing project begins. And I don't begin framing, actually cutting wood and nailing walls together until all of my walls are laid out on the floor. Okay, so we've gone around and done all the exterior walls. Now, we're going to call this wall number 1. So please pay attention to what I'm about to tell you, because this is where most people mess up, and then from there on out the job's pretty much screwed. Alright? There's a right way and a wrong way in framing. Alright? I like to think that my way is the right way. Alright? There's going to be other guys that will disagree with some of the things I do, but this is basement framing. All right, this is not first floor framing a house up above the ground. You're right, you're in the basement. There is a ton of obstacles overhead, things that you do not have to deal with on a regular framing job. Okay. All right, so all of our lines are on the floor. You actually watched me lay out this particular wall right here. Your first wall is really important. You can basically pick any exterior wall that you want that you've already laid out and begin on it. All right. I find it's easiest to find a straight wall that's at least 12 feet long and begin with it. Don't begin with a little 4-foot wall. Pick a nice long wall and start with a nice long wall. So we're going to start back in this corner. All right. The first thing that you want to do, we're going to be building on our red lines on the floor. We've already marked our X's on the side of the red line that we're going to be sitting our wall on. Alright, this wall that I'm standing in front of here is going to come down and turn 90 degree, go this way. It's also going to come down here into this corner, turn 90 degrees and go that way. Alright, this is wall 1. And this will be wall number 2. I'm going to build the first 2 walls with you here. Alright, if you follow and understand what I did on these first 2 walls, you'll be able to start your basement anywhere you want and frame it correctly. And then the rest of the framing job is just going to be a repeat of what I'm going to show you here. Alright, or 90% of it is going to be just a repeat. There are some special situations that I'll talk about as the framing video goes on. But with what you're going to learn here, you should be able to frame 90% of your basement. So here's what you do. With your 25-foot tape or 30-foot tape, whatever you purchased, you're going to want to roll your tape out, all right, and lock it out. All right, press the lock button down so that the tape doesn't recoil back into the box. Now, I'm going right to left here. My tape is up, I'm going left to right. My tape is up the left side of this wall. Now here's where you really got to pay attention. Now down here in this corner, alright, here's our 90 degree bend right here. Right here. The wall comes down and turns 90 degrees. You want to take your tape measure and you want to lay your tape measure along the line, and you want your tape measure to go 3.5 inches past wall number 2. Alright, this is wall number 2 here, this is wall number 1. But we're going to build wall number 1 first. We want our tape to extend past the plane of the red line of wall number 2, 3.5 inches. Okay, and you might need some help with this. So Mark's going to stay up this end and make sure my tape doesn't move off of that 3.5 inch mark. Alright, because it might want to slide around when I go up the other end to do what I'm going to do next. So Mark, hold that there at 3.5 inches. Now up the other end, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go 3.5 inches past. This is wall number 1. This is wall number 3. We're going to build this one third. But we have the same situation again. Wall number 1 turns into wall number 3. So we're going to go 3.5 inches past wall number 3. Alright? So what you have to do, and you could have done this before you started laying your tape out here, but you want to make sure that you have a mark 3.5 inches past your third wall. All right, so I'm 167 and a quarter to my red line. So we want to go 168 and a quarter, 169 and a quarter, 170 and a quarter, plus a ½ inch, which would be 170 and 3/4. Okay, and I'm going to make a crow's foot right there. Okay. All right, so our plates on wall number 1 are going to be that measurement, 170 and 3/4. Okay, I'm 3½ inches past on where I started, down where Mark is, and I'm 3½ inches past up at this end here. All right, so when we build wall number 1, it's going to stick past wall number 2 and 3, 3½ inches. Now your measurements are going to be totally different. Yours might be 150, yours might be 175, whatever it is, it's going to be 3½ past wall number 1 on one end and 3½ inch past wall number 1 on the other end. So I'm going to cut a regular 2x4, a white regular old 2x4, off of a 16-foot 2x4, 170 and 3/4. All right, write that measurement down. Write your measurement down, whatever it is, so you don't forget it. Okay, so what we need for the first wall are 2 things. We need a top plate, and we need a bottom plate to get the project started. The bottom plate is going to be treated lumber. It's going to be lumber that can sit on concrete and won't rot out. Treated lumber, green lumber. So we need a green 2x4, 170 3/4, and a white 2x4, 170 3/4. You can see he's already got a 16-foot regular 2x4 and a treated 2x4 up on the sawhorses and across the saw. Now what you want to do is make sure that the ends of your 2x4s are exactly the same, so they're lined up. All right. I'm going to cut them at the same time, so you want to make sure that the white one and the green one are even on the ends. And Chris pulled that 170 3/4 inch measurement off that end that was evened up there. And he's got a little tiny mark right here. Now if you want, you can take your tri-square, your speed square, and you can square that line right across the 2x4 so you know where to cut with the saw. Alright, so there's our cut line. You push your 2x4s back in against the fence on both sides of your chop box. Alright, and you're going to be cutting through the line. Cut them both at the same time. Okay. Now we're going to take those 2 plates, we call these plates, the top and bottom piece of lumber in any wall is called your plates. The green plate's the bottom plate, the white plate's going to be the top plate in the wall. Okay, so what you want to do, take your tape measure, come back down here to the corner that you started in, and on top of your, put your white plate on top, your green plate on the bottom. It's easier to draw and make your marks on the white plate. Hook your tape measure on the end of the white plate and make a mark at 3½ inches, a crow's foot. Okay? Do it on that end, and do the same thing up here. 3½ inches, little crow's foot. Same type of crow's foot we put on the floor when we snapped our red lines. And then take your speed square, or your rafter square, sit it down on top of the 2x4 and slide it along here, and draw a 90-degree line right across your white plate. Okay? 3½ inch line. And do the same thing up the other end. 3.5 inch mark is going to line up with the line on wall number 2 up this end and with wall number 3 down here. Alright, if these pencil lines line up with wall 2 and 3, your plates are in the correct position. Alright, and they're going to be set right down on the red line. So then what you want to do, now pay attention to this. Again, this is wall number 1. This is probably the most difficult wall because you're doing work on both ends of your set of plates. Alright, the walls that are going to be after this, wall 2 and 3, are going to be a little bit easier. So what you want to do is you want to draw a line like this on your top plate. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just draw it across like this. And then on the back side of that line, you want to make an X like this. And you're going to have a 2x4 sitting there. That's why I'm showing you this. There's going to be a 2x4 sitting just like that on that wall when we nail it together, when we build the wall. On the other side of your 3.5 inch line, make another X. Right, let's go up the other end. We're going to do the same thing up here. We're going to divide this line like this. Doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to put an X on the back side of that line, towards the exterior wall, and on the other side of your 3.5 inch line, another X. The X's mean there's going to be a 2x4 there. There's going to be a 2x4 here and here. And I'll explain to you why there's a 2x4 here and here as I build this wall. Alright, are you with me so far? Pretty easy so far, right? That's simple. This is child's play. Could teach a first grader how to do this. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to stretch our tape out again here, put it on top of the plates. I'm going to show you how to lay out the 2x4s that are going to be in your wall. Alright? This has to be done right, and the main reason is the drywallers are either going to love you or they're going to hate you. Okay? They're going to love you if you do what I'm going to show you here correctly. Because if you do what I show you here correctly, there's going to be a 2x4 in your wall wherever there's a seam between two pieces of drywall. Okay? That's really the only reason why. And we're going to do what's called a 16-inch on-center layout. It's the most typical layout for residential framing. That means there's going to be the center of a 2x4 every 16 inches to nail your drywall to. So here's what you're going to do. Take the end of your tape and bring it down here and put it right on the 3.5 inch line. Okay? That's where the layout starts. Don't hook it on the end because you're screwed if you start there. Right here on the 3.5 inch mark. Okay? Now, it gets real simple now. The first mark that you're going to make is going to be 15.25. It's not going to be 16. Alright? I'll explain why in a minute. Your first mark is going to be 15.25. Like a crow's foot there. All of our X's that we're going to put on that are going to be covered by our 2x4s on our wall are going to be set ahead. Alright? That means the way we're going with our measurements is ahead. So at the 15.25 mark, make an X ahead the way we're going. That's where your first stud's going to go. Okay? Now, you can continue down with this layout two different ways. If you're smart enough, and I think you are, you can keep going down this line, and wherever there's a red mark on your tape, or a 16-inch mark, you can come back 3/4 of an inch from them red marks and mark and make a crow's foot. Alright? I might have confused you there, but here's how it works out. 15.25 is our first mark. Our next mark is 31.25. Alright, it's 3/4 of an inch in front of the 16 mark. Okay, the next one, we'd come up here to the next red mark, which is 48, and we'd go back 3/4, which is 47.25, and that's where our next mark would go. And so on. We keep finding our 16 marks and we keep coming back 3/4 of an inch. Or, which might be easier for you, just take your tape measure from your first mark, which is never going to change, by the way. 15 1/4, burn that into your brain, because that's going to be the first stud mark on all the walls I'm going to show you how to lay out. That never changes. But to make the rest of the layout easier, you can take your tape measure, bring it down here to the 15 1/4 mark, and start on that 15 1/4 mark, and now you can use the red marks on your tape. You don't have to worry about coming back 3/4 of an inch. So stick it on the 15 1/4. We go 16. I already did that one. 32. I have that one done. We go 48. Set ahead. The next 16 mark, 64, and these are marked right on your tape. They're normally going to be a red mark on the 16s. All right, the 16s are going to be red. You buy a Stanley 25-foot tape, the 16s are going to be all marked in red. Okay, and they're going to have a double arrow on them. See the arrow? None of the other numbers have that, just the 16s. So 64, then we go 80, set ahead. 96, set ahead, and so on, the whole way down your wall. Just make a little crow's foot wherever the 16 mark is, and then an X ahead. And we run it the whole way down, and your wall's going to be a different length, but run it the whole way down with 16 marks until you run out of places to put 16s. All right, this will be the last one that I can put on here. And then I'm down to the end of the wall. Okay, so that's going to be my last mark. Now our wall's only a little over 12 foot long. Yours might be 8 foot. Yours might be 15 foot 6. Whatever it is, it is. But the point is, the layout's going to be done the exact same way. All right, so I'm going to put my tape back in its case, because we're done with the tape measure now. Now we're just going to take our speed square, our rafter square, and we're going to mark our plates. What you want to do is put your plates beside one another. Make sure they're even on the ends. Okay, the ends are even. Please make sure the ends are even, or your wall will be crooked. And with our speed square, we're going to duplicate all the marks we made on the white plate. We're going to bring them all over to the green plate. Even these ones on the end that we started with the 3.5 inch marks. Alright, so let's draw the 3.5 inch mark first. Split it in half. And you're going to reverse the X mark on your bottom plate on the very end. So if your X is on the back side of your white plate, which it is, it's going to be on the front side on the green plate. Okay? That's the only thing you got to remember. The rest of the marks will all be the same. This X will be the same. And then what you want to do is hook your little speed square on the wall, slide it down to each crow's foot, and then draw a line across both plates. Okay? X ahead. Right across the crow's foot. X ahead. Right across the crow's foot, X ahead. I'm just making them X's a little bit bigger on the white ones. And on every one of these lines, we're going to be positioning one of our studs in our wall. Make sure your pencil's making a nice dark mark on these so you can see them later. Alright, and then we're going to do the marks on the very end again. 3.5 inch mark on this end. Split it in half. Put an X on the outside. That'll always be there. And then opposite whatever you are on your white plate on this X, you'll do on the green plate. So if you're on the back side, which I am here, not the front side, the back side of the white one, you'll be on the front side on the green one. Okay? Alright, so those plates now are 100% ready for me to start taking measurements to begin to cut my wall studs to put into these plates. Please watch what I just showed you a couple of times till that starts to sink in, okay? I can't tell you how important the layout is in framing. It's just as important as the wall being plumb and straight and all that other stuff we talked about. These walls are perfectly laid out for drywall, and there's really no other right way to do it. Okay, so here's what we're going to do next. We're going to take our white plate and put it back up on top of our green one. We're going to get our plates on the red line the whole way down. All right, make sure you're right on the red line. And now we're going to measure for our studs. All right. Now, the way that you hold your tape measure and measure can make this easier. It can make it a real royal pain. All right. None of us are going to be 8 feet tall, so we're not going up there and holding our tape against the floor joist. We're going to have to roll our tape up. Here's what you do. Pull your tape out of the sheath a little bit and bend it so that you can roll it like this. All right, this is called rolling your tape. And we're going to roll our tape right off the bottom plate. And we're going to roll our tape up until it passes in front of what we're measuring between, which is going to be the floor joist. So watch my tape up there. I'm rolling it right past the floor joist. And I can see that my first stud, I'm measuring to the bottom of the floor joist now, or if you're over here on the side, the bottom of the cats. The distance between the stacked plates on the floor and the bottom of that floor joist is like 90 and 5/8. All right, it's measuring 90 and 5/8. So I'm going to deduct about a strong eighth from that. I'm going to go an eighth of an inch shorter than that. I'm going to say that's. It's 90 and a half. I don't want to be tight. I want a little bit of play. About an eighth of an inch of play is perfect. All right? That way I'm not going to be pounding my wall in with a sledgehammer when I cut these studs and put this wall together. So I'm going to go down through here and joist, okay? At the floor joist locations, every 16 inches up above me, I'm going to drop down to my plate and measure up to see how long my wall stud should be. Okay, so this measurement off these double plates to the bottom is going to be the length of what Mark is going to be cutting those studs over there too. Okay, now you can go across and measure them all, and if you're lucky, maybe they'll all be the same length. The problem with basement framing is, or an issue with basement framing is, the concrete floor is not perfectly level, generally speaking. So don't be surprised if you got a couple studs that are the same length and then the next few are a little shorter or a little longer. It happens, but you have to cut it to whatever it is, okay, if you want a perfect wall. All right, so let's go down through here and I'm going to see if I'm lucky enough to have all the same measurement. My first one, 90 and 5/8, so I'm going to subtract an eighth. Okay, that's 90 and a half. The next one. 90 and 3/4, 90 and 5/8, that's 90 and 5/8. Yep, another one at 90 and a half. And that's looking about the same. That's looking the same. We're getting a little tight now. I'm at 90 and a half between there, so I'm at 90 and 3/8 now. All right, so now we've already, our 2x4s are getting tighter because the concrete floor is uneven. So I know I'm going to be cutting these at 90 and 3/8. All right. So now we're back up to 90 and 5/8 again, so we're back at 90 and a half. 90 and a half will work there. And there. And there. And the last one is a little tight. The floor goes up here in the corner, which is normal in basements. Alright, so I know that my tightest one, I figured it's going to be 90 3/8. So I'm going to go ahead and cut them all 90 3/8. Alright, I'll have a little bit of play up there, that's fine. I'm going to be shooting the bottom of my wall into the concrete. I'm going to be nailing my top plate squarely into these floor joists. It's okay to have up to 1/4 of an inch gap above your wall. Alright, so 90 3/8 mark. And now I'm going to count this for Mark. Everywhere there's an X is a stud. I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 of them. Double checking my measurements. 90 3/8. Alright, remember that, guys. Measure twice, cut once. That's a rule for carpentry. Always go back and double check your measurement. You'll save a lot of material that way, because even I and my guys will, from time to time, not measure twice, and we'll forget the measurement, or we'll think it was the right measurement and it wasn't, and we'll waste lumber. Okay, so Mark's going to cut 2 studs at a time, just like we did with the plates. He makes sure the end's even. He pulled off this end, 90 3/8, and he's going to use our saw and he's going to cut these off. Alright, so here's our first. Now, please pay attention. Again, this is really important. You don't want to build your wall upside down. You want to make sure that your white plate on your exterior walls, that your white plate remains up here at the exterior wall. So we're going to put him in position on the side, up here at the concrete wall. The green plate, we're going to bring back to the back side of the wall. Don't forget to do that. The green plate is always the furthest away from the exterior wall that you're going to build the wall in front of. I'll show you why in a couple minutes. Alright, so stand your plates up like this. What we're going to do first is we're going to go down through here with our 2x4s. And we're going to position our 2x4s correctly between the top and bottom plate.